Hey, so today I'm going over my game 2 at World Open WoW. Let's go. Let me just bring up the slideshow for you guys. So game 2 at World Open WoW. Game 1 had gone okay-ish for Denmark. I believe we got 2 wins and a draw or something like that. And we were now going to face off against Spain 2, which was a team captained by Nacho, whom I had met in Madrid in the Madrid Nationals in Spain. I hadn't played against him, but I had met him. So, and we team up, pair up, and one of the tables that we got was this one, the Highway to Hell table. Now, one caveat here is, on this picture here, which was taken after the event, people had already started moving stuff. These 2 pieces of terrain, they were further in, so the forest was over here, and that piece of rough ground was here. Other than that, that was the table. There was, which you can't see on this picture, there was a little house here on this hill here, and that's it. So it was a very, very open table with 4-laned highways going down the middle. And of course that was a really bad table. My players did not want to play on that. I did not want to play on that. So as the captain, I took the table. And there were a few of these scattered woods about, and I knew that they were like CD size. They would not be enough for me to hide behind. There was way too little cover for me to be comfortable on that table. Everything was visible. There was very little cover, and there was nowhere to hide. That was going to be a problem. And I knew also, because of the mission, which was Armored Thrust, it's a land grab for armored vehicles. So if you had an armored vehicle and you could move it out the table, you would get 3 points. Other than that, it was a kill point mission. I knew for that my opponents would most likely try and match me up with an armored platoon, which my army really couldn't deal with. So I knew that this was going to be a bad matchup. Mission and table was going to be against me completely, and I'm paired up against Nacho. And I just think, well, if going for that land grab, like trying to rush out my armor, or him trying to rush out his armor, I think it is a trap. I think this mission should be played slowly, and it should be played primarily as a kill point mission. Sort of how I faced off against Manuel in the Dutch Nationals, where I allowed him to move some of his armor out of my board edge because it allowed me to free up my own armor to start hitting his armor. So for me, this mission was always going to be played as a kill point mission. But I was afraid that I would be paired up against an army that had a lot of armored vehicles that could just rush out, and then I couldn't catch them up. So I needed to block off the exit routes. That was the main point. So the lists that we were playing, I was of course playing my UFO swarm. So 2 veteran scouts, 2 cavalry, 8 line mortars, 3 T60s, and some support. I had 24 order dice in total. So I didn't really have armored superiority in this mission because I was paired up against Nacho, who had 3 scout cars, all of them 7+ armored. So he really had as much armor as I did. He had brought an American army that had a lot of skirmishers. It was a gunline / mechanized army because he had his skirmishers in the scout cars. And then he had a multi-rocket launcher, and he had 2 heavy autocannons. Now that meant, and I knew that meant, that he was going to have to split his forces, because one was a maneuver element that could push up. They could really only realistically push up in the center, which I was happy about because that meant I could shoot at them. I could block them and start shooting. And I also knew that he would start getting in his own way for those direct fire AA guns. So he had 22 order dice though, which was a higher order dice count, and ideally my UFO swarm needs to be against a list that has a lower order dice count than itself. So it wasn't ideal, but I thought that maybe I could make it work. And I also thought that I would get shot to pieces at range. Now, the plan was for me to play kill points, to try and hide, to be better at finding the angles, what I call pie slicing, which is a term I borrowed from Infinity the game, where you you find the correct angle where you can see that one target that you want to shoot at, but the rest of his army can't see you. So that you slice the pie so thinly that you can see what you need to go at. And I think I'm pretty good at finding those angles. And I also needed to block his rush. So play kill points, find the angles, block his rush. I'm relying on me to be a better player than Nacho, basically. Because that is the board, right? That is the board. Now, the deployment. We start deploying our stuff. Nacho deploys in 2 baselines, which is the red circles in his line up here on the top half of the map. So one circle here and the other here. He deploys 1 AA gun in each of the circles, looking in towards the center, and he deploys his multi-rocket launcher over here, looking towards my backlines over here. And then he also makes a push towards the center with his scout cars and his skirmishers in them. They sort of push up along this one road here. But at that point, I had already deployed my bull formation, like the horns of the bull that the Zulus used to make, where I have 2 strong wings and a thin, long center line. The center line only needs to hold for as long as possible. The wings are going to do the work here. So for me, the wings were going to start the shooting, and it was going to try and crush Nacho's push towards the center. I also have 2 scout units which I could forward deploy. So one of them goes up here, and I wanted it to be behind this rock pile here because that would be hard cover, and at the same time they would be within range of pushing up to the secondary objective. Now it turns out I ended up using them for all kinds of other stuff as well, so countering that push and all kinds of stuff. I also deployed 1 scout unit over here. That scout unit ended going after a sniper that Nacho had deployed over in this woods here, where he could see my whole center, the head of the bull down here. Now I didn't want him to be able to shoot at me. I wanted him gone so that my my center could be held down with light mortars, with my MMG teams, rabble basically. And I do deploy my MMG teams straddling the roads here so that he can't use the roads to get out. On each of the flanks I end up having mortars, so I had I think 2 or 3 mortars over on my right, and the rest, like there was 1 in the center and the rest were over here, and these were all shooting at Nachos' push here in the center, most of them, and trying to distract him and trying to get a few hits in, get a few pins, encourage him to move, encourage him to spend the dice early, because that would mean that I could get other stuff done. Yeah, that's basically the deployment. So the key moves, the things that decide this game is: 1, Nachos' push collapses. The scout cars drive up and unload, and I counter with a single T60 and some support. So I had a few MMGs shooting at him. I had my scouts move up at one point, shoot down one of his units. My T60 moves up here towards this area here and shoots into him. And as soon as he is clear of the cars, I rush 1 officer on horseback straight up into the center of his scout cars. Now that was a suicide rush. I knew that officer was never going to survive. But it meant that he had to take morale tests for his scout cars, and 1 truck that was not a scout car, it wasn't armored, it died from that suicide rush of the officer. That officer survived a lot longer than he should have. He actually ends up getting off his horse, using his SMG to shoot a couple of Nachos' guys over on this flank here, being a huge distraction that caused him to do a lot of stuff. At that point, I had cleared his push of the center, and I could start rushing my own units towards the center objective which I take with an officer on horseback. On my left flank, I start out by clearing his scout with my scouts. Then he pushes a lot of skirmishers against me. I take a lot of fire, but I survive most of it. I return with my own baseline here, with my T60s and my light mortars shooting at his skirmishers. And then at one point, I have a unit of cavalry sitting, and it's the last dice of a turn. And I see an option, so I rush them up 18 inches, because none of his guys are on ambush at that point. I rush them up 18 inches, so they're peeking out into his back line between the two forests. Like, remember, this forest is over here, so I'm picking one guy and putting him out there, looking down the line. And I know what I want to do with that. And I think Nacho is at that point in doubt what I want to do, because it's only 5 regulars, right? It's not that dangerous, and he has a couple of infantry units, officers. He's got an AA gun that can absolutely shoot and kill me. And then I charge 17 inches straight at his multi-rocket launcher, which had been shooting at my other clump, my other flank, all the way across the board. I charge it and I kill it in one go, because I get the first order dice. Troop, sabers out, cut him down. And then his whole flank turns around and just pours fire into my my cavalry, and they die. That was the trade-off. That was the suicidal charge of the light brigade there. And that meant that my veterans were free to move, my T60s were free to move, to shoot and then pour fire into his flank. And at that point, the game ends, and he basically, his army collapses. So, thank you so much to Nacho for our game. I will still be releasing recorded games, more of these Batreps for you guys. I hope you enjoy them. I hope you learn something from them. I certainly do. It's a way for me to keep track of what happened, but also to think about the tactics that I employed. This one was really brilliant. It was a game of very much of grabbing the right line of sight. And as such, it was a very enjoyable game. I did not like the board at all, but it did present us with a lot of nice tactical challenges. So, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.